G'day and welcome to another episode of Ian Smithson's Photography. So, rookie mistake this morning. I forgot to charge the microphone for the GoPro, and so I got nothing sensible in video for the first hour that I was out in the field. My only excuse is that it was a seriously early start, 3 AM, out of bed, pack up the gear, into the car, and a 3-hour drive to get to Korumburra. So you may remember from the last episode, and I'll put a link up here, so go and check it out, that I asked for requests for locations in Victoria, or more broadly in southeastern Australia, that you'd like to see me go and shoot. So Louise, this one's for you. You asked for the Korumburra Hills, and so this morning I went out and shot the foothills of the Strezlecki Ranges, just north of Korumburra and Leongatha in South Gippsland in Victoria. Well, here's the Google map of southeastern Australia, with Melbourne in the centre. And Gippsland is this region of Victoria in the southeast, and I was particularly interested in this little central part of South Gippsland. So if I zoom in, you can see here the towns of Korumburra and Leongatha, and if I zoom in just a little bit further and switch to satellite view to show you the topography, you can see that this is mostly pasture. It's particularly dairy. And I was interested in these foothills just north of Korumburra, where there's some dirt roads that you can get up onto these hills with views east down a couple of these valleys. So I wanted to go and have a look at those first, and then I moved a little bit higher up the hill and shot back down towards the town as the sun rays had just started to hit these hills and the buildings in the town. I then drove down to Leongatha and took the delightfully named Wild Dog Valley Road up here into Wild Dog Valley and shot a bald hill that had 4 isolated trees on it. And I then drove over to Mount Eccles, and then, if I just slide over here, up around Mount Worth State Park. By the time I got to the park, it was middle of the morning and the light wasn't great, but I did want to get down into this little windy road down here to get a shot of the dirt road winding its way through the tall eucalypt forest. This is the first shot that I spotted as I drove up the hill, and obviously what grabbed my attention here was the view down the valley to the rising sun and this rolling fog in the bottom of the valley. The sky is much brighter than the rest of the scene, so I put a graduated neutral density filter over the top of the sky and tilted that at about 30 degrees so that it was darker over the left hand side than the right hand side. And then I also bracketed this shot at 2 stops under to 2 stops over exposed, so that I could blend those shots together later and make sure that I didn't blow out the highlights or have too many darks in the shadows on the right hand side. I then looked for some close-up highlights. Firstly, the trees in the fog at the bottom of the valley. Secondly, that gum tree on the sort of middle right-hand side in the valley there. And then lastly, the hills on the left-hand side, where I particularly like the yellowy brown grass on the front hill contrasted by the green grass on the back hill. So I focused right in just on the junction between those two so that I could emphasize that change in color but still maintain the texture as the sun rose up in the background and backlit the grasses on that front hill. I then moved further up the hill to a location where I could shoot back across the rolling hills towards the town, and waited for the sun to just pop up over my left shoulder and start to light those hills and the town in the background. And then I shot across to the right hand side, that is just out of frame here, where the sun was shining just across the grasses on those hills, but we still had that beautiful rainbow coloured sky in the background. On the gloriously named Wild Dog Valley Road, just north of Leongatha, and as I was driving along, I spotted this grassy hill up here with 4 isolated trees and a fence running up a ridge towards the crest of the hill. And so I've pulled out my 70 to 200 millimeter lens, and I'm going to walk up and down the road here and try and pick out some shots with these isolated trees. It's one of my long time projects, is finding single isolated trees and trying to shoot them in an interesting way. There's still just enough angle in the sun, it hasn't got up too high yet, to be providing some interesting shadows on 2 of these trees. And then there's one tree right up on top of the ridge that I can get with just the green grass, the dark green tree and the blue sky. So I'm going to shoot a few of those and see what we can do. this is one of the iconic shots of the forest parks in southeastern Australia. Dirt track winding its way down the hill, and these giant eucalypt trees and fern gullies on the side of the road. So I'm going to set up probably just on the edge of the road, shoot straight down the road, try and line it up so that I've got the trees trunks parallel. And as you can see with the mottled sunlight through here, there's a huge dynamic range. So I'm going to bracket this probably 3 or 4 stops under to 1 or 2 stops over, so that I've got enough tonal range to merge those either in HDR or by blending in Photoshop later. It'll probably be HDR because there are so many patches of brights and darks that it's quite difficult to blend those manually. So we'll see how we go.